just what they want to see. You will see the things that never die. You will know and recognize by simple childlike faith the priceless truth others will deny. When others say I'm just a man who liked to dream his dreams, when others call a miracle a myth, you listen for eternity in moments as they pass, and see with spirit eyes what others miss. Upon this rock I'll build my kingdom, and on this rock forever and ever it shall stand, and all the powers of hell itself shall never more prevail against it, for Satan's thrones are built on sinking sand. Upon this rock I'll build my kingdom, and on this rock forever and ever it shall stand. Upon this rock of revelation I'll build a strong and mighty nation, and it shall stand the storms of time. Upon this rock. If in a simple carpenter you see the Son of God, if you would choose to lose when you could win, if you would give your life away for nothing in return, then you are where my kingdom will begin. Upon this rock I'll build my kingdom, and on this rock forever and ever it shall stand, and all the powers of hell itself shall never more prevail against it, for Satan's thrones are built on sinking sand.
All right. Hey, good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. Hope you had a great, for many people, long weekend with the 4th of July on Thursday and extended weekend. It's good to be back together. It's Monday, July the 8th, 2024, and we are continuing in Revelation. I always start the day thinking I'm going to get further into it than I end up doing. We're going to be just looking at Revelation 18:1 through 3 today. The title today is, Are you building a home in a crumbling kingdom? Are you investing everything of who you are, all your hope, all your focus in a system, in a kingdom that is done, even if it looks like it's thriving today? Right? When we see this, the picture in Revelation 17 of the prostitute, right, the porneia that's on the beast, and she's jaw-dropping. You're just clothed in scarlet, clothed in purple, adorned in jewels and gold and pearls, and this picture of even it almost looks like this great blend of the best of this world and heaven too, and the thing upon she's a twisting, a perversion of what God has called us to, but she's alluring. And the thing is this where you're putting all of your hope? Revelation 17, one of the seven angels, verse 1, holding the seven bowls came. So one of the seven angels from the bowls came and spoke with me, saying, Come, and I will show you the sentencing, the verdict of the great prostitute who sits on many waters. The earth's kings committed sexual immorality with her, and those who dwell on the earth got drunk with the wine of her immorality. Again, this word porneia is used over and over again. So he carried me away in the ruach, in the spirit, into a wilderness, and I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast that was full of blasphemous names and had 7 heads and 10 horns. The woman was clothed in purple and scarlet and adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls. She was holding a golden cup in her hand full of unclean things or abhorrent things, and the filth, the uncleanness of her porneia, of her immorality. And on her forehead was written a name, a mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of pornon, of prostitutes, and the detestable things of the earth. And I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the Kedoshim, of the saints, and with the blood of the witnesses of Yeshua. And when I saw her, I was totally astounded. I was thaumazo. She was jaw-dropping. The angel said to me, Why are you thaumazo? Why are you astonished? I'll tell you the mystery of the woman and of the beast that carries her, which has 7 heads and 10 horns. So this imagery of, again, the word used over and over, immorality, prostitute, this imagery of the great prostitute, porneia, it can be a bit uncomfortable. The symbolism grabs our attention. It shocks us into realizing what's really at stake, what's happening in the verses. We'd rather kind of move on, not dwell on the image of porneia or the prostitution that's being put forth here. But the Lord doesn't sugarcoat how wrong it is and what it is to trade on what is true and faithful. When we trade trade our faithfulness for a cheap substitute, where we can gain things that in the immediate seem to have bring pleasure, but it's an unfaithfulness to the Lord. And because of how deceptive and dazzling sin can be, that me first, we are tempted to sell out what should be held closely and held on to the Word of God and to what He has spoken. And the temptation is to make compromises. You gotta, hey, how often I've heard within the believing community, when I'm like, well, no, what about what the Scripture says? What about our principles? Where people go, well, this is the real world. Look, we got to deal with the real world. And so where we end up operating with kingdom of this world weapons, kingdom of this world mentality, and it's a prostitution of what God has called us to do. But the Lord reveals that to us here and in His Word. Skipping ahead to verse 15, He tells me, the waters that you saw where the prostitute is seated are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. The 10 horns that you saw and the beast, these will hate the prostitute. They will make her desolate and naked and devour her flesh and burn her up with fire. And again, this is all graphically related in Ezekiel 23, which we looked at on Thursday. It says, for God has put it into their hearts to do His will and to be of one mind, one purpose, and to give their royal power to the beast until the words of God are fulfilled. And the woman that you saw is the great city, exercising kingship over the kings of the earth. So we see over and over in Revelation, not just here, but back in Revelation 13 and throughout, there's and in 2 Thessalonians chapter, we see this delusion that's on a massive scale. If we think that it's just, only just a couple of people or an individual or two can be misled, but then the majority is usually right, we should pay attention to what we see here, to where there's this society-wide systemic delusion that's portrayed here, where the world at large, a combination of kind of religious, economic, political ideologies, affirm the beast and all that's going on. According to verse 2, those who dwell on the earth follow the prostitute gladly. They're made drunk by her enticements, right? They're drawn into her godless system. And you have this mixture of materialistic greed with spiritual sensitivities it's opposed to the truth of who God is. And this twisted thing seems to have it all, rides astride the beast. And the Lord's allowing it, right? And there comes a point where the very beast that this system rides upon will turn on it. And Babylon, the great city, is doomed. What right now can feel invincible and irresistible, and it is ultimately the systems of this world. When you look and you go, man, they always win. The power brokers of this world, it always seems to, where wickedness seems to rule the day. It can seem invincible, but it is ultimately unstable. It is doomed. And it can seem like such a great investment. It's just going up and up and up. Let's build our house there. That's where the value is. Let's build my life there. Let's build my life in this mixed up twistedness that says I can be first. It can be me first. I don't have to deny myself, take up my cross and follow Him. I can put my interests above all others. It's the real world. Yeah, I know what Yeshua said, but I mean, that's nice and all. But, come on. This is going to run me over or whatever. Look, they operate this way, so we got to operate this way. It's the real world. And there's a twisting that can begin to happen. And we put all of our energies into trusting in the systems of this world. But Babylon the Great is doomed. Unstable and doomed. This is not the place to build your house. Verse 1 of chapter 18. After these things, I saw another angel coming down from heaven, having great authority, and the earth was illuminated by his glory. So now John in chapter 18 sees a glorious and mighty angel. So in chapter 17, we see Babylon as the great prostitute riding the beast, right? And then God causes that alliance to fall apart. The 10 horns, the beast turns on her, and so chapter 18 gives the effects of, here's the judgment, here's the impact of the judgment on Babylon, and what we begin to see, we don't see all in this picture of the falling of Babylon being fallen. It's not like where we saw the pouring out of the bowls of wrath, where we saw the judgments. What we will begin to see here as we go through further into chapter 18 are these dramatic sort of lamentations, cries, mourning and grief expressed by those who had benefited from the ways of Babylon that are now seeing it all devastated. So now you see, I saw another angel coming down from heaven, having great authority, and the earth was illuminated by his glory. So the angel is coming down from heaven, and the angel's coming down with great authority. Now back in chapter 13, verse 2, we saw the beast. The beast that I saw was like a leopard, his feet like a bear's, his mouth like a lion's, and the dragon gave him his power and his throne and great authority. And so there's sort of a contrast here, a marked contrast between the origin of the beast's authority from the dragon, and here this angel is coming down to make a declaration, and this angel is coming with great authority. And it says, and the earth was illuminated by his glory. The earth was lit up by his glory. So this is the only angel in Revelation that is described with the attribute of glory as an attribute that points to the angel. Normally, up to this point, when you hear of glory, the glory is attributed to the one who sits on the throne and to the Lamb. So the glory that we see upon the angel here that lights up the world is he's coming from the very presence of God, right? This is from being in the presence of the glory of the one who sits on the throne and the Lamb. Similar to what we saw in Exodus, right? When Moses had met with the Lord. Exodus 34, 29 and 30. Now it happened when Moses came down from Mount Sinai with 2 tablets of the testimony in his hand, when he came down from the mountain, that Moses didn't know that the skin of his face was radiant because God had spoken with him. When Aaron and all the children of Israel saw Moses, the skin of his face shone in rays, so they were afraid to come near him, right? So he comes in glory, and there's an illumination. And, of course, Moses was coming with the very words of God, bringing light to the people. And so now here this angel is coming, and the earth is illuminated by his glory. There's his mission. There's something very significant about this authoritative mission of the angel. And this kind of introduction gives us a heads up that what's following is of special significance. The angel is to introduce the scene with a mighty shout. It's a mighty voice that Babylon's days are numbered. Again, some commentators will refer to this as Rome. It has to do with the system of this world, which can be seen in the Roman Empire, which can be seen in ancient Babylon, can be seen in the different empires of the ages. But it has to do with the underpinning of that Babylonian system, of that system of man's self-sufficiency that seeks to exalt itself, to make a name for itself apart from God. And the days of that system are numbered. And again, we're not getting at an absolute timeline of it. We're just given the absolute certainty of it. You build your house in Babylon, its days are numbered. It's not a good investment. He cried out with a mighty voice, saying, verse 2, "Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great. She has become a den for demons, a haunt for every unclean spirit, and for every unclean bird, and for every unclean and detestable beast." So this glorious angel moves into the point, right? declaring for everyone to hear that Babylon has fallen, right? And it's in this, the tense, and fallen, it indicates a suddenness, and it's done, right? It's not falling, it's fallen. Even in my title, I use the word crumbling. It's not crumbling, it's crumbled. It's done. It may look like it's like building your house on a sinkhole. It's a massive sinkhole. It's done. And of course, this message, this announcement, fallen, is Babylon. We've seen. We saw it here in Revelation. You'll remember there were these angels that came one after the other in Revelation 14, where the first angel, Revelation 14:6, brought what we see 14:6, a timeless message of good news, evangelion, to proclaim to those who dwell on the earth, to every nation and tribe and tongue and people. Said in a loud voice, "Fear God and give him glory, because the hour of his judgment has come. Worship the one who made heaven and earth and sea and springs of water." Right? This is a calling to repent, really, to fear the Lord, to give him glory. This is a timeless message of good news. And then that's followed by the second angel calling out the fall of Babylon. Another angel, verse 8, a second one followed, saying, fallen is Babylon the Great. She who made all nations drink of the wine of the fury of her immorality. So this verdict has been, is assured. Fallen is Babylon. It was prophesied by Isaiah. It was prophesied by Jeremiah. And it can be in those times referring to the original Babylonian kingdom, but that is a picture of a greater spiritual truth. It is literal about the Babylonian kingdom, and yet it is pointing to a greater, more eternal reality. Isaiah 21:9 and 10. He says, "Look," he says, and look at this. Here comes a chariot of men with a pair of horsemen. And then one answered and said, fallen is Babylon. All the images of her gods are broken on the ground." And then, I think that's just verse 9. I don't need to go into verse 10. And then in Jeremiah 51, verse 6, "Flee from within Babylon, each one escape with his soul, with his life. Be not silenced in her iniquity, for it is a time of vengeance for Adonai. He will repay her recompense, pay her what she deserves. Suddenly," verse 8, "suddenly, in an instant, she is fallen, Babylon. Shattered, howl over her, bring balm for her wound. Perhaps she may be healed." We'll look at that again a little bit further later, going into the next verse. But here's a fallen is Babylon the Great. And so think of Babylon. With, Nebuchadnezzar had looked over his kingdom, and when you see the pictures of ancient Babylon, it was in the gardens of Babylon, it was one of the wonders of the world, one of the 7 wonders of the world. And so now the imagery is a really vivid description of Babylon's devastation, right? So that it's not a place of opulent splendor. We've seen, in gold and silver and covered in jewels, and now completely desolate. A place of like a barren wasteland. It's a place of ruins. It's like when you go to ancient places that were once, you see the pictures of them in the ancient world that were the newest thing, and now they're run down, they're broken down, they're empty. It's like, when you go to certain parts of cities that are boarded up, and you see graffiti all over, and they've become, basically homes, places full of, people who are just dying from their drug addictions. These drug houses in places in our cities that were once splendid, places that you're kind of, you don't want to really drive through. They're places that are dangerous, full of crime, and you wouldn't get out of your car. You don't even want to drive through them. That's the imagery, really, in an ancient way of what you see happen in Babylon. Here it says, she's become a den for demons, a haunt for every unclean spirit, for every unclean bird, and for every unclean and detestable beast. In the Hebrew scriptures, when a city is completely destroyed, it's no longer suitable for human habitation, but it becomes a haunt for scary creatures. Isaiah 13, verse 19, so Babylon, the glory of kingdoms, the beauty of Chaldean pride, will be just as when God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. Verse 20, it will never be inhabited, nor will it be dwelt in from generation to generation. Nor will an Arab pitch a tent there, nor will shepherds let flocks lie there. But desert creatures will lie there. Their houses will be full of owls. Ostriches will dwell there, and goat demons, we're going to look at that in a moment, will dance there. Hyenas will howl in their citadels, and jackals in their pleasant places. Her time is near to come. Her days will not drag on long. So it's like the places that are now your houses are going to be filled with birds. And here where it says goat demons, it uses this word sha'ir, which is used 4 times in the Bible. It's used here. It's used in Leviticus 17:7. It says they are no longer to offer their sacrifices to the goat demons, to the sha'ir, the goat idols or demons, after which they play the prostitute. This will be a statute forever to them throughout their generations. 2 Chronicles 11:15 says Jeroboam had appointed his own priests for the high places, for the sha'ir, for the he-goats, for the goat idols, the goat demons, and for the calves that he had made. And then you have this passage, and then in Isaiah 34:14. So here it says here in this passage, right, in verse 2, it says she has become a den for demons. Now, I want to hang here for just a minute, because the word den here is it's the noun form of a word that we've seen the verb of multiple times. The word in Greek for house is oikos, and when you intensify something, you put a kata in front of it. This preposition kata in front of it. So kata oikos is like, this is your home. This is where you live. This is home field for you. So she has become home field. This is the natural dwelling place, the habitation for demons. Now, up to this point, we've seen this word used in verbal form repeatedly, used to identify in association with the people who basically this world is their home. Like, this is their habitation. This is home field. This is their kingdom. And they've fully identified with this world. So this word kata oikos in different forms, but the verbal forms have been used throughout. So let's just run through them very quickly. Revelation 3:10, because you have kept my word about patient endurance, I will also keep you, to the congregation at Philadelphia, from the hour of trial that is coming upon the whole world, the trial to test those who, kata oikos, who dwell, this is their habitation on the earth. Revelation 6:10, and they cried out with a loud voice, saying, O sovereign master, holy and true, how long before you judge those who dwell on the earth? You know, I think at one point there was a term that I really liked that someone had used for this word, the worldlings. Worldlings. You know, that's, I just need to type that in my notes real quick, because I had forgotten about that. You know, it's worldlings. That's what we see here. This is their home. Revelation 11:10. The worldlings of the earth, those who dwell on the earth, will rejoice over the 2 witnesses. They will celebrate and send gifts to one another, because these 2 prophets tormented these worldlings. Verse 8. And all who dwell on the earth shall worship him, everyone whose name has not been written from the foundation of the world in the book of life, and the Lamb who was slain. And we can see Revelation 13:12, Revelation 13:14, Revelation 17:2, Revelation 17:8, right? So Babylon the Great has become, as she was, a place of idolatrous worship. She is home to the worldlings and home to demons. And demons are associated with the deception of the false prophecy that leads to idolatrous worship. We see that here. We see that in 1 John chapter 4. And so Babylon the Great, in her fallenness, is what she was before, a place of demonic deception that leads to idolatrous worship. Goes on to say she will be a haunt. Verse 2 again, 18:2, a haunt. And the language there is prison, a prison for every unclean spirit. Right? It can be taken as the word haunt or domain or habitation, but John uses this word even in his gospel, referring to a prison, philaiki, so she has become a prison for every unclean spirit. This is the place that they thought they ruled. They are trapped, right? If the imagery of sin feels like freedom, but it's entrapment. It is chains, it's bondage. She will become a place for every unclean bird, for every unclean and detestable beast. Again, this we see this imagery in the Hebrew Bible in Isaiah chapter 34. I had verses 8 through 15 there, but for time's sake, I encourage you to read it, but I'm not going to go through it right now. Verse 3, Revelation 18:3. Because, why is she in this state? Why is Babylon here, right? Why does she deserve such judgment? For all the nations have drunk of the wine of the fury of her immorality. The kings of the earth have committed sexual immorality with her, and the merchants of the earth grew rich off the power of her self-indulgence. So we see three different clauses here. The nations have drunk of the wine of the fury of her immorality. Now, this is language that is we saw in chapter 14, verse 8, almost exactly. The only thing that's interesting here is the word used for drunk. In some of the ancient transcripts, so the word for drunk here is pepoken, and the word for fallen is peptoken. Okay, so so some of the ancient transcripts have drunk, and some of them have fallen. All the nations have fallen from the wine of the fury of her immorality. Right, the image would be that they have in their drunkenness, right? According to 14:8, she caused them to drink. They in chapter 17, verse 2, they became drunk, but here they have fallen due to the wine. So they have collapsed. They have gone to all the nations. The overflow, the impact of participating of the drunkenness of the wine of the fury of immorality has resulted in their own fallenness. So Revelation 14:8, another angel, a second one, followed, saying, "Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great, she who made all nations drink of the wine of the fury of her immorality." So this of the fury, this word tu thumu, is the passion or wrath, rage. It's language that we saw associated with the dragon. Therefore, Revelation 12:12, therefore rejoice, O heavens, and you who dwell on them. Woe to the earth and the sea, for the devil has come down to you with great thumon, with great rage, with great passion, with great wrath, knowing his time is short. But you have here the wine of wrath that's related to this porneia, right? It is rage and immorality, rage and of the enemy and the compromise that are interrelated. The kings of the earth have committed sexual immorality with her, right? We saw that in chapter 17, verse 2. The earth's kings committed porneia with her, and those who dwell on the earth got drunk with the wine of her immorality, of her porneia. And again, that language there, those who dwell on the earth, that's that word, kata oikos, which this is their home, the worldlings. And then it goes on to say, and the merchants of the earth, our word for emporium, that's the word for merchants here. The emporium and of the earth grew rich off the power of her self-indulgent. So you have the merchants of the earth who grew rich of the power of her self-indulgent, or her extravagant luxury, of her sensuality would be the idea here. So the word merchants, the market, you think of back in John 2:16, where Yeshua says to those selling doves, he says, get these things out of here. Stop making my Father's house an emporium. Stop making it a marketplace. So you have these that are growing rich. The judgment's coming because of they grew rich off the power, off the strength of her self-indulgence. And so what you see is the indulgence of this world, what the appeal of it, the luxury, the selfishness that's associated with greatness. And in Revelation 3:17, Yeshua says to the congregation at Laodicea, he goes, you say I am rich. I've made myself wealthy and I don't need anything. He says, but you don't know. You don't see that you're actually miserable and pitiable and poor and blind and naked. So her luxury here represents sort of a materialistic focus, and on the part of the way the empire functions, materialism, and that leads to arrogant self-sufficiency, and that leads to a lack of concern for others. We see in Ezekiel, where the Lord gives this image of calling Judah and Samaria Sodom and Gomorrah, and it talks about Samaria, the northern kingdom, as her Sodom, and talks about her careless ease and how she didn't care. The sin of Sodom was that she didn't care for others. It was this self-centered way of being, and so the me firstness expressed in our world through the continual acquisition of wealth and goods and without concern for others, is a system of this world that is so deceptive, and it's so alluring. You have a whole prosperity gospel out there that is a perversion of the gospel, that sells this idea that having the wealth of this world is actually an indicator of God's blessing, which would have been shocking news to the early believers, to many of the early believers who were destitute for the sake of the gospel, who lost everything for the sake of the gospel, and so. But look, it can be very tempting to let that be what your driving force is. Again, is wealth wicked? No. The love of money is the root of all evil. It's what do you love? And the thing that we always have to be honest with ourselves about is we go, I don't love it. I love the Lord, is to say, Lord, continually search me and know me. Where am I putting all of my focus? Where am I investing all of my energies? Do I have the mind of Messiah? Because the system of this world that looks like victory is doomed. And so as the passage goes on in verse 4, we're going to be called to come out of her. Get out of her. Don't participate in her and receive the consequences of this. And which is what the Lord said in Jeremiah. It's what he said through the prophets. Get out of her. Get out of Babylon. Don't be in communion with what she's doing. And because we live in such a materialistic society, it's like We've asked the question before, does a fish know it's wet? There's so much materialism and idolatry and the exaltation of money and economy above all things in our society, that it's so easy to be tainted with and to be corrupted with such priorities. And so for all of us, we want to say, Lord, I want to build my house upon your rock, upon what you have taught, upon what you have said. Yeshua says, he who hears what I've taught and then does it is like the man who builds his house on a rock. I don't want to build my house upon this sinking sand, the crumbling kingdom of what looks glorious and magnificent now. I want to build it on you and on you alone. All right. Well, have a great Monday and a great week, and go in the power of the Holy Spirit and say, Lord, give me eyes to see what you're doing. Lord, help me as I walk into the place where you send me today, to shine with your light, to walk in your love, to not be characterized by the spirit of Babylon, but to be characterized by the Spirit of the Lord, and to be willing to lay down my life and to love others not to put myself first, but to love others. Help me to reflect Yeshua to a hurting and dying and broken world. Amen? Amen. Don't forget if you to hit like or subscribe and to share today's Daily Manna if you like it. And if you haven't downloaded the app yet, please do so. All right. Well, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Shalom, shalom. Have a beautiful day.
Just what they want to see. You will see the things that never die. You will know and recognize by simple childlike faith the priceless truth others will deny. When others say I'm just a man who liked to dream his dreams, when others call a miracle a myth, you listen for eternity in moments as they pass, and see with spirit eyes what others miss. Upon this rock I'll build my kingdom, and on this rock forever and ever it shall stand, and all the powers of hell itself shall nevermore prevail against it, for Satan's thrones are built on sinking sand. Upon this rock I'll build my kingdom, and on this rock forever and ever it shall stand. Upon this rock of revelation I'll build a strong and mighty nation, and it shall stand the storms of time. Upon this rock. If in a simple carpenter you see the Son of God, if you would choose to lose when you